So your partner tells you that she doesn't love you anymore. Maybe she's pushing for separation. Maybe she's pushing for divorce. And a lot of guys at this point, they think that it's actually over. And there's nothing you can do to change her mind anymore. And there's really nothing you can do. Things are absolutely hopeless at this point. But in this video, I want to tell you why that's actually wrong. And this is my experience from working with thousands of clients who are starting off in the program in very dire situations. But later they realize that when your partner tells you it's over, it's actually far from over. And in case you're new to this channel, guys, my name is Geoffrey, and I help men who are on the brink of a divorce or a separation become irreplaceable and magnetic to their partner to eventually re-attract them back. So to understand why this is actually far from over at this point, we need to first understand the common mistakes that I see a lot of people making at this point in time. So because of the negative thought patterns that I talked about in the beginning of the video, the first mistake that I see a lot of people making is that they try to rush or they try to do a half-court shot in a way to try to salvage the situation. And a lot of people try to hunt and do desperate things, and these desperate things that they do usually fall into three categories. One is what we call the active form of this. So in this active form, they're trying to blame this on their partner. They're trying to guilt trip their partner. They're trying to make their partner feel bad, and they show it through active emotion and active anger to try to rope their partner back in. People can also try the passive way of this, where they try to act aloof. So they try to play the no contact rule, for example. They try to act like they don't really care if their partner leaves or not. But they do this in hopes that they will trick your partner's mind into somehow thinking that you're valuable in some way and want to come back to you because of that. But you can also try the stoic way. You're trying to use logic and reason to try to reason to your partner why she should stay, why she should not go, why she should not think that the situation is hopeless, etc. So what if I told you here that you have it all wrong? That this is not the point where it's hopeless, but this is actually where the game actually starts, where the game actually begins. So instead of doing all these three things that show desperation and hunting, this is the time you need to be patient and actually play the right play. So to understand this, the next thing we need to understand is why your partner is actually making it hopeless for you in the first place. And to understand this, we need to put ourselves in our partner's shoes for a little bit. Get out of our own heads and put ourselves in your partner's shoes here. So if you look back to the history of your relationship, her was saying that it's over, her wanting divorce is actually not the moment when she tells you that she's feeling unhappy. If you look back in the relationship, you'll probably see that she's been telling you how unhappy she's been for a long time, either overtly or covertly, either explicitly or implicitly. And every single time you see that maybe she's not the happiest in the relationship, you tend to make promises. You tend to make promises that things will be better, that you'll do better, that you'll change, that things will change, etc. But of course, a lot of people saying this, they're just saying it because they know that that's what their partner wants to hear. But they don't actually understand what changing actually means, what bettering the relationship actually means, and how to actually stop the toxic behaviors or the bad behaviors that actually caused your partner to be unhappy in the first place. So you make a lot of these false promises that you cannot deliver. And when you cannot deliver, what you're doing is you're getting your partner's hopes up and then you're crushing it back down again. Now, when this happens once, that's fine. But if you look at your relationship, this usually doesn't happen once. It usually happens maybe 10 times, 20 times. And if this happens so many times like this, when you get her hopes up and then crush it back down, up and crush it back down, she reaches a point to where she sees you as the boy who cries wolf, where your promises, your words, your promises for change, your promises for betterment don't actually mean anything anymore. So again, if you notice here, guys, there's a cycle here where you notice your partner being unhappy. Maybe she tells you it explicitly or implicitly. You make some promises, and you cannot keep those promises. And when you cannot keep the promises, you crush her hopes again. And this repeats many times throughout the relationship. So then it shows here again that your promises and your words, they're always conditional. They're actually conditional. They're not permanent. They're very temporary. Your changes are actually very surface level. They're not your deprogramming. They haven't become your lowest default. They're just some temporary things you're doing to just please her in that particular moment. A band-aid solution, if you will. And if you keep making this cycle, it shows her ultimately that you're not capable of change, because here is a guy who's trying to change this whole time, but despite his best efforts, he cannot just make it there. And so when your partner says she doesn't love you anymore, that she wants to push for a separation or divorce, that's her saying to you, enough is enough. That you cannot lie, you cannot trick me anymore. Your charismatic words, your nice sounding words are not gonna cut it anymore. That she wants to see some action. And so here she's basically making a stand and saying, you know what, I'm leaving as a matter of principle because I'm not gonna fall for your ruses, for your charismatic words, for your manipulation anymore. But the funny thing you have to understand here that a lot of guys just cannot realize somehow is that when she tells you it's hopeless, that is actually when she actually will start watching you very, very closely. And to understand this, let's consider two scenarios here. Let's consider a scenario number one where she tells you it's hopeless, that she wants a separation or divorce, and you totally crumble and you resort to doing the three things that we talked about. You either do the active toxic behavior where you try to get angry at her, you try to get upset at her, you try to passive role where you act like you don't care, or you try to logical approach. If you do this, what do you think that will tell her about her decision to leave? Well, if you again put yourself in your partner's shoes, I think you'd be thinking, okay, so I wanted to leave this relationship because I was so unhappy. And once I expressed that I wanted to leave the relationship, this person starts to get angry at me, starts to play all these tactics and games, the same tactics and games he's been playing for years or decades. That tells me, one, this guy doesn't even understand his need to actually change. This guy doesn't even understand that the changes that he needs to make are actually very deep. So it tells you here that there's really not a good, genuine reason, because this person doesn't even understand the reason why he needs to change, the reason why I'm leaving in the first place. It tells me that their changes are going to be very conditional. It's conditional on the fact that they want to save this relationship, they want to get me back. And if it's conditional like that, then once the conditions go away, then they'll also stop their changes. So the changes can never be permanent. It tells me that that person is very manipulative, that they will lie, cheat, and steal. They will say some things that they don't actually mean, they don't actually understand, just to band-aid that problem right there and there. And it tells me also that they're still trying to use the same approach that actually caused the problems to try to solve their problems. They don't even understand they need to change their approach here. So that's scenario number one. Now let's consider scenario number two, where your partner again makes it hopeless for you, and she makes it hopeless to the point where you can no longer fake things anymore. There's zero hope. She has taken away all hope here. But instead of giving up and doing the three things that we talked about, you instead find the right process, double down on the right process, and you get even more motivated to change. So in terms of our program, for example, you still take the time to create emotional and psychological safety, create admiration, create goal alignment, and create maybe that sexual passion. And you're still working on that internal shifts like building your bulletproof vest, like untethering, and etc. And you continue to look within and you don't resort to actually blaming her for her wanting to leave the relationship. And throughout this whole process, you are remaining graceful, you're remaining very poised, and you're always looking within to try to see what's my flaw instead of resorting to blaming your partner and making her feel bad for leaving. So you can see the difference in your responses in those two scenarios. One scenario, you're faced with the same stimuli, but you are panicked, you give up, you get demotivated, etc. And in the second scenario, you get the same stimuli, but then you are doubling down on the process. You're actually more motivated to change. You remain steadfast to your changes and you remain poised. Now again, put yourself in your partner's shoes at that exact point in time. Let's say, again, you've made things hopeless for this person, but this person still remains so strong in their changes, in their new self. What would you think in that moment? Well, if you watched a lot of my client stories and especially the couple interviews they have with their partners, or if you were to ask me, I would be thinking along the lines of, I've taken away all hope for this person, but they're still changing. Maybe this time is different. Maybe he's finally changing for himself. Maybe he actually now understands why he needs to change and the levels that he needs to change. Maybe now he has a different, genuine reason behind his changes, not just to lie, cheat, steal to try to get me back as a band-aid solution, but maybe he's actually becoming this person. That maybe these changes are becoming his lowest default. And maybe he actually enjoys his changes now. When he enjoys his changes, that would mean that the changes would be more permanent as well. And this is actually how a lot of my clients in very dire situations eventually reconcile, because they're planting that seed of doubt in their partner's mind, but they're not doing so just by words, but they're actually speaking through their long-term and very consistent actions despite the fact that things seem very hopeless. So even though her actions and words are saying all these things, what she's actually trying to see at this point is, what do you do when no one's watching you? What do you do when you think the game is over? So to understand this again, let's imagine you are trying to conduct an experiment. And in this experiment, you're trying to see, what do people do when they think no one's watching them? What do they do at their natural predisposition? Now, of course, one way you can do this is you can get all the participants and tell them exactly what's happening. Hey, you're being studied on ABC or XYZ. But if you do that, then you can never really tell, are people doing this because they're supposed to do well in this experiment because I told them what the experiment is? Or are they doing this because it's their natural predisposition? So that first approach doesn't work. So what do you do instead? Maybe you tell them, hey, the study is about XYZ, ABC, and you tell them the test is over. And once the test is over, you maybe bring them to another room. And in that other room, that's actually when the experiment begins. But the subjects don't know that. And if you create that environment, that space, then you can really see what do they do when they think the experiment is over? What do they do when they think no one's watching anymore? And then you can really see people at their natural predispositions. So if you understand this, then you can also understand that your partner's doing the exact same thing here. Again, she's at a position now where she doesn't believe anything you say anymore, doesn't believe anything you do anymore. And so she needs to see, what do you do at your natural predisposition? And so here she's going to make you think that you're being watching one thing, in this case, that the game is over. But really, when she tells you the game is over, that's when she actually starts to watch. What do you do at that particular point in time? And again, just to double down on this point again, because this point is so important, guys, is that she's doing this only because she wants to see whether your changes are 100% real, 100% genuine, 100% permanent, and 100% rooted in something more solid than what you've been doing in the past, however many years, or even 10, 20 years sometimes. She wants to see that something is changing right now. And a lot of you may be wondering here, well, Jeff, how do you know she's actually watching me at this point? Guys, trust me on this. She's always watching. I've enrolled 2,000 clients at this point, and if you watch a lot of my client stories, you'll always hear them saying, my partner was always watching me. And if you look at the couple interviews especially that we have, their partners will always tell them, no, I was always watching you, even though I was telling you that it's hopeless, that I wasn't watching you. I mean, let's reverse the roles here. If it was you in that position, in her position right now, and you've had a relationship with this person for years or even decades, can you just flip a switch and say, you know what, I'm not going to watch this person anymore? Of course, that person's going to take very big space in your mind still. You're always going to be watching them. And so your partner's doing the exact same thing. And another objection that I see a lot of people having to the point I just made here is they might be saying, but Jeff, that's kind of messed up. Why would I really want to be with someone who is testing me like that, who is always testing me like that? That's kind of messed up. So number one is that she's not doing this in a cunning or very manipulative way. It's not like she's sitting down in her room and devising a test to say like, okay, what test can I give my partner to see whether his changes are real or not? But this is more of a passive and reflective approach where, let's say, at the end of the week, she sits down on her couch and she thinks about you and the relationship. And she would consider, let's say, 100 things that you did that week or that month. And she sees here that 99% of the things you do, it can be faked. There's ulterior motives there. But there was one event of that 100 where she thinks to herself, I made this really hopeless for this person, like impossible for this person. I gave him no reason to still be nice to me, no reason to change. But yet he still showed his new self. That one instance that she's looking at will do everything to plant that seed of doubt in her mind on her decision to leave. And this is not just her doing this, guys. You actually do this in your life many times over. So if you find yourself struggling to trust someone, to trust what they say and do, you would do the exact same thing. You would look at the 100 things they do, and you would dismiss the 99 things they do if you can see that there might have been an ulterior motive to it. But the one event that you cannot see ulterior motives, that you cannot see them faking, that's the data point that you'll pick. And that's just how our mind works. And again, you may be thinking again, well, if it's not hopeless, then why would she tell me it's hopeless? Why doesn't she just tell me outright that if I do these changes, then she will come back? Why play all these mind games? Why resort to all this trickery? Well, again, if you look at the experiment again, you have to understand that she cannot tell you that things are not hopeless. Because if she tells you that things are not hopeless, then she can no longer tell in her mind whether what you're doing is just to succeed in this experiment, or you're doing it because that's who you actually are. That's your lowest default now. So with all that said, I want to give you the specific roadmap that you can follow if you find yourself in a position where she makes it hopeless for you and she's threatening divorce, separation, etc. So number one, again, is that I want you to start seeing this as a blessing, as a massive opportunity that it actually is. And this is a key mindset shift that all my clients start off with. And without this key mindset shift, you can never thrive in this situation. And if you cannot thrive in this situation, then you cannot break through the situation as well. So at this point, you should learn how to not feel hopeless when she makes it hopeless for you, but actually feel hope and see this as an opportunity, that there is something you can do, that this is actually when the game begins, when she actually begins to watch you, that this is really showtime. And this is the point when you need to really double down on the processes, on the right processes, be patient, and play the right place, stick to the right place. And number two is that I need you to also internally admit and understand and accept that there may be a lot of things you need to change. There may be a lot of flaws you need to address within yourself. Because I want you to put yourself in your partner's shoes here. If you've been married for many years or even decades, and just think about what your partner is foregoing, what your partner is risking to leave your relationship right now. Number one, she's risking a lot of the judgments and toxic behaviors that you tend to resort to when she threatens to leave. Number 2, she forgoes and she risks all the years of invested energy, invested time to that relationship. Number 3, she risks being villainized by society, because usually the person who says they want a divorce first is usually the one that is villainized. And usually if you've been married for a long time, your partner here is leaving as a woman, usually at an age that's really past their prime, where the dating pool becomes more challenging for them. So they're risking this prospect of being alone for a very long time and risking going into the unknown to try to leave this person. So you know that saying people say when they say, oh, I wouldn't even take it if it was for free. Well, your partner is literally telling you right now, I will pay a great deal of cost just to get out of your life. So just think about that. So if you think about that and you still think that there's no flaws within you for you to look into, then I'm sorry to say, for lack of a better word, that's a bit delusional. And number 3, I need you to learn how to build the 5 pillars, which are the only 5 key pillars that you actually need in a relationship. And I want you to also make the 3 layers of changes. So understand this, guys. When you are trying to ask someone to spend the rest of their life with you, note your partner only has one life here. And you're asking them to spend their own one and only consciousness and spend it with you. That's a very big ask. And if you are asking your partner something big like that, then you have to deliver with big changes, with big delivery as well. And so this is why I say just being better is not enough. You have to become really irreplaceable at building the 5 pillars and the 3 layers of changes. And so what does it actually mean to become irreplaceable at building the 5 pillars or the 3 layers of changes? What brings me to my 4th point, which is that you need to become a performer at this. So there's a really good quote that says, amateurs practice something until they can get it right. But real pros, real performers practice something until they cannot get it wrong. So remember that example that I gave you earlier where your partner is looking back at the 100 things you did and she's dismissing the 99 things you did that could be faked, but she's looking at the one thing you did that you cannot fake. And so a lot of people can do a lot of the correct things, a lot of the great things during moments when it's easy, when there's no curveballs, etc. And they think that this is actually enough, but you need to actually get everything to 100% so that in the moments when you cannot fake, and she is going to make it impossible for you to fake, like for example, making it hopeless for you. What will you do during these moments when you cannot fake? And if you're not a performer and you can only do some things right sometimes, you can never pass this test. To pass this test, you have to understand what it means to perform, what it means to do the right things and make it your lowest default, make it your base reflex to do the right things. So we have a video on this right now on the performance mindset. If you want to watch that video, again, click the link above my head, also down below this video as well. And number 5 is that you need to do things, show your changes and do things and say things from a more powerful and genuine place of what we call untetheredness. I know that sounds like a big word, but all it is very simply is a lot of people, when they do something, when they say something, they do because they want to have. But very few people understand what it means to actually do because you are. But again, doing because you want to have is the exact reason why she couldn't trust your changes in the first place. Because if you do because you want to have, your changes are always going to be very conditional. They're always going to be very temporary. And when you realize that your doing isn't leading to the having, you will start to give up. But as we talked about, this is a very backwards paradigm or mindset that will actually lead you to giving up at the exact wrong times. And so the only way to make your changes seem more genuine, more trustworthy, and break the patterns that you've been doing for the last years or decades, you need to learn what it means to do because you are. And that's the crux behind untethering. Because here you're trying to untether from the having. And you're trying to retether yourself to doing something because you love the process, because that's who you are, your identity level. And admittedly, this is a really difficult place to get to. It takes my clients months to actually get to this state because this is so different than how most people live their life. And nobody really teaches you these things when you're going to school, when you're going through life, etc. And so most people don't even understand what this means. So if you want to learn more about this concept of untetheredness, then I'll include a link for you above my head, also down below this video as well, for you to equip yourself with more knowledge on this topic. And in the thousands of cases I've taken in my program, I've never seen one single instance when someone has really did all 5 things that we outlined here and not plant a seed of doubt in their partner's mind about their decision to leave. And eventually that becomes a stepping stone to actually reconciling. I've never seen one case where someone did all 5 things properly and in the right ways and not achieve what they thought was impossible. So if you want to learn the 5 pillars that we talked about and the 3 layers of changes, or the 5 things here that we presented in this video, then I want you to join me in my masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up. In that masterclass, I'll show you the exact process that my clients have used to take them from a very hopeless and dire situation to a reconciliation, or in their own words, a place that's actually better than reconciliation. So if you want to join me in the masterclass, guys, again, the link is above my head or also down below this video. So I hope that was helpful for you guys, and I hope to see you in the next video.